The 1981 NFL Draft is often remembered as one of the most talent-rich drafts in league history. Here we go.
81 National Football League Collegiate Player Draft. Who will follow in the footsteps of Ricky Bell, who went to Tampa Bay during the year 1977? Earl Campbell, who went to Houston in 78. Tom Cousineau, who decided to go north to Canada in 79. Billy Sims, who went to Detroit in 80. Who will be number one in 81? Let's find out as ESPN presents the NFL Draft. ESPN presents the 1981 National Football League Draft. Brought to you by Hilton Hotels Corporation. When American business hits the road, American business stops at Hilton, America's business address. And by Natural Light Beer. Taste is why you'll switch to Natural Light. Get it on. You're looking at the floor of the Grand Ballroom of the Sheraton Hotel in New York City, where for the next 8½ hours, history will be made. We start the 1981 National Football League season. We've been talking a lot about it in recent weeks and recent months, and in fact, a lot of work has been done during the past couple of months towards developing the 1981 National Football League Collegiate Player Draft. We know who the big names are. We know who the big athletes are. We know what is expected. We know the names of Rodgers, Taylor, and the like are expected to go near the top of the round. But what is unexpected? That's going to be a good portion of the story during the course of the next 8½ hours from here at the Sheraton in New York City. From Oakland, we'll be reporting on what's transpiring there, and also from our broadcast center. Bob Lee is standing by at our broadcast center right now to take a look at what will most likely be the top picks of this 1981 National Football League Collegiate Player Draft.
Thank you, George. And there's very little doubt that the 1981 season does begin today. Bud Wilkinson, the team's plan, they get the computers out, the budget's out. It all begins today, even though the exhibition season is months away.
Well, what happens today will determine the future of the teams this year to a degree, but more importantly, 2 or 3 or 4 years from now, from the player standpoint, where they're drafted relates to how much money they're going to make.
Paul McGuire, there's pretty much universal agreement that this draft is solid through 4 rounds, very deep this year.
They're deep at linebacker, they're deep at defensive backs, but I think the one thing, Bob, that people are overlooking is the fact that they are extremely deep in quarterbacks. And it was announced yesterday, I believe, that Dave Wilson of Illinois is available in this draft, and that might throw a monkey wrench into some things.
It's going to make the strategy very interesting, especially as far as the Rams are concerned early on. Howard Balzer from the Sporting News, your selections for the top 3 picks. We've heard about whether the Jets will make a move or not, but who are the top 3 picks in your mind?
Well, I'm waiting for Bum Phillips to go against the grain and throw everything off, but he'll probably select George Rodgers. I think the Giants will then select North Carolina linebacker Lawrence Taylor, and then the Jets, if they hold on to that pick, will probably select UCLA running back Freeman McNeil.
Well, let's focus in now on those first 3 selections as you have picked them. The Heisman Trophy winner, George Rodgers. The first selection does belong, of course, to the New Orleans Saints. Rodgers, 5,200 yards on his career rushing, and also a good receiver as well.
A lot of people say that Bum should take some linebacker help. His son, the defensive coordinator, Wade, says that. But I think with the 2 picks they have on the second round, with the first choice, of course, again on the second round, they'll probably go for their defensive help there.
Of course, is his wrist okay? He had the slight wrist problem late in his senior year. If his wrist is healed, he could be ready to step right in and move a ball club into possibly contender status. The Giants own the second selection. It's thought they will go for defensive end Lawrence Taylor out of North Carolina, number 98.
Of course, projected as a linebacker. Like Bud said, where these players are selected is going to indicate how much money they're going to get. And there's some talk that some Giants players might walk out if he gets the $750,000 for 3 years he's asking. But he's an excellent player, and he's moved up to the top of the linebacker class.
Right now, the Jets own pick number 3 overall in the draft, the 3rd pick in the first round. They are thought to be leaning towards Freeman McNeil, number 24, the running back out of UCLA.
The Jets fans in the balcony in New York are probably going to scream again when a defensive player is not taken. But again, the draft is 12 rounds. You can get that help later on. And McNeil will help them because of his versatility coming out of the backfield to catch the ball. He's a good blocker and, of course, a good runner, as we can see.
Well, those are the projections for the first 3 picks. They are, of course, subject to change with trades and machinations that will occur at the Sheraton. Also, we'll be checking in live at Minucci's and also live in Oakland, California, seeing exactly what's happening out west. And we'll check back in just a moment with New York as ESPN's live and continuous coverage of the National Football League draft continues.
Welcome back to New York City, the New York Sheraton Hotel. We're ready for 8.5 hours of action. As Bob Lee and company told us at the broadcast center, there are a lot of prospective things that may be happening during the course of the next hour or so during the top of the round drafting. And to comment on those, Paul Zimmerman of Sports Illustrated will be with us to add his expert commentary during the course of the draft. And, of course, our own Sal Marciano will be acting as more or less a center fielder to keep us all on top of what's happening and add his expert commentary as well. Now, when we talk about what's happening during the course of this draft, all day long, Greg Gumbel will be part of our commentary, and he'll be filling us in on how a lot of the teams have done in recent memory as far as the draft is concerned. The Saints have draft pick number 1. Greg Gumbel takes a look at the New Orleans Saints history.
The New Orleans Saints have been the worst team around for quite some time now. Too long, in fact, if you happen to be a New Orleans fan. And the reason is downright incompetence when it comes to draft time. The statistics will tell the story for New Orleans. Only 9 starters through the draft over the last 6 years. In 1976 and again in 78, the Saints had the number 3 overall pick. Over the last 6 years, the Saints had 7 first-round choices, only 3 of them with the team today. Wide receiver Wes Chandler, kicker Russell Erxleben, and last year's number 1 choice Stan Brock. 6 of the starters for the Saints came as free agents. Premium errors, the Saints haven't made them recently, but they do have some in their history. Bob Watts in 77, Bob Simmons in 76, and 4 of them in 1975. But the Saints need a good, solid, productive draft this time around. Bum Phillips, the new head coach of the Saints, has quite a challenge ahead of him. You see, the Saints have been in the NFL for 14 years, and they haven't had a winning season yet.
Thanks, Greg. Greg will be filling us in on each one of the teams as we come to draft time, as we feel it's necessary. Paul Zimmerman, you had your mock draft. You felt, as of last night, that probably the Saints would go for George Rogers. How does it shape up this morning?
Well, if you remember, I said that if they made a trade, it would be for veterans, not for drafts. They have 18 picks. I don't think they need more choices. They don't need numbers. They need good players, proven players. I don't know how much sense it would make to trade Rodgers or whoever they want to draft. I know the Cowboys are after him, and they've offered Guy Brown, Larry Bethea, and Ron Springs, which means they want to get rid of their mistakes. Except for Springs, he was proven, but the others are just players that they want to get rid of. If you remember, the Cowboys traded 3 times to get the top pick in the whole draft or close to it. They got Tony Dorsett, Too Tall Jones, and Randy White, who were very near the top, and that's the heart of their team. And the people they gave up were Craig Morton, Tody Smith, Billy Parsons from draft.
All right, that's part of the story. The draft picture, as far as the fans are concerned, is another part of the story. Leandra Riley is ready as we begin the fans' entrance here at the Sheraton Hotel in New York City.
Well, as you can see, there is quite a crowd here at the Sheraton, and the fans have been lining up. Are you ready for this? Since 4:45 this morning. The fans are ready to pass out cards and numbers and things like that so that it's an organized entry to the draft. And if you think it's difficult being a player, a collegiate player, to be drafted, it's even more difficult these days to be a fan. Not only to get up at the sunrise to get a good seat in the house today, but they also are involved in a fan contest. And with me is a young man from Wilmington, Vermont. Your name, please, and the team that you're rooting for.
Dave Thomas, a diehard Jet fan.
Okay, now Dave Thomas got here at 4:45 in the morning, and how many drafts have you been to?
This will be my 9th draft, and the 9th draft where I've been one of the first 5 in the draft itself.
Okay, and he's, of course, referring to being the first 5 fans. You were involved with the contest last year, and for those of you that are unfamiliar with it, the NFL sponsors a contest in which the fans are invited to select the first 28 choices. If there is a tie, it will then go into selection for accuracy in terms of players chosen for teams. But how did you do last year?
Last year was one of my best years. I had 19 out of the first 21 picks pinpointed. I had 23 picks altogether. What killed me at the end was the defensive backs being picked. I guess all the teams were scared after the Jets went for Lamb Jones.
Okay, as you can see, the fans are knowledgeable. The competition is stiff. So let's go back with more NFL draft action.
Thanks, Leandra, and she'll be filling us in on what's happening in the gallery all day long for 8.5 hours. Sal Marciano, draft number 1 goes to the Saints. How do you see it at this point?
Well, the Saints are sitting on that top pick, and everybody's still wondering if, even at this last moment, are they going to trade it away. There's a competition of another sort, and that's between administrators, executives, and evaluators of talent. Dick Steinberg and Steve Rosenblum, of course, resigned from New Orleans when John Macon made his decision to go with Bum Phillips. And Steinberg left New Orleans with a shot at the organization by saying if he was still in New Orleans, he would take Lawrence Taylor, the linebacker from South Carolina, as opposed to George Rogers. To me, he's leaving town and throwing a rock at the organization. And I wonder at this moment, we all do, if Bum Phillips is going to sit on it and choose Rogers, despite what Steinberg said, or is he going to trade it away?
That is pick number 1. It will be coming up in just about 15 minutes or so, the first pick of this 1981 National Football League draft. The man who will preside over that first pick is with our Sam Rosen on the floor here in the Grand Ballroom at the Sheraton. Sam?
And George, the commissioner almost didn't make it. He got stuck in the elevator coming downstairs.
We spent about 20 minutes with some of your people. They finally got us out.
Commissioner, a lot of work goes into the NFL draft, and the teams do a lot of homework, a lot of preparation. I wonder if you could talk about the intricacies of the preparation for this draft.
Well, of course, they start following them in their freshman year, and they just compile every bit of information they can, because the draft is really the lifeblood of the development of a football team, and they don't like to make mistakes. And today, of course, is a culmination of having watched these players for 4 years.
What do you think is going to happen early in this first round?
I imagine there'll be a surprise or two. That usually happens, either a sudden trade or a switch in someone's anticipated position, them taking someone who wasn't expected.
Had a couple of developments happen last evening. Vince Ferragamo and James Scott signing with Montreal in the Canadian Football League. What's your reaction to those players signing with the CFL?
Well, sorry to see them not stay in the National Football League. We'll just have to go out and find others like them, I guess. The clubs will in the draft.
Do you think that moves like that will affect how the team will draft?
It well could. That's right. It well could for both teams, for both the Rams and the Bears.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you for being with us. Now back to George Brand.
Thanks, Sam. Sam will be on the floor during the course of this entire 8.5-hour broadcast to get a reaction from some of the team officials, from some of the media people who will be here, some of the players as well.
Mike
Chris
Singletary,
Berman is at Mike
Howie
Manucci's.
Long,
We'll check
Rickey
in with
Jackson,
him after this
and
word.
Russ Grip.
Hey, New York town, New York town, New York town.
Paul Zimmerman and Sal Marciano will be adding commentary. Sam Rosen is on the floor of the ballroom at the Sheraton to give us the perspective of the different team officials. Leandra Riley is with the fans here at the Sheraton. And at one of the favorite sports watering holes of New York City, apropos, Chris Berman is there at Mike Manucci's. Chris, how are things looking over there?
Thank you very much, George. And you can see the red and the white tablecloths. Maybe a little early for some to start going, but we're at Mike Manucci's restaurant, where a lot of sports folk and the Big Apple will be coming out to give their opinions on the draft. It's at 7th Avenue and 52nd. And if you're in the Big Apple, you want to give your opinion, by all means, stop by. Frank Ross is with me from Inside Sports, along with Jack Dolph, the first commissioner of the ABA. And Frank, before the bar opens, what do you expect to see here in the draft, the first few picks?
Well, it's ironic that the first 4 teams selecting today are the only clubs that did not make the playoffs in the last decade. For the Giants, if the Saints make a change and go with Lawrence Taylor, George Young will be confronted with the opportunity to decide between Hugh Green and George Rogers. He'll take Rogers. For the Jets, if they take Freeman McNeil, I think that'll be a mistake, primarily because McNeil will help their running game, but 2 years ago they led the league in rushing, but they only won 8 games.
Yeah.
Hugh Green could help their defense much in the manner that Buddy Curry did with Atlanta last year.
Well, hopefully the next decade will be better drafting for those 4 teams. Jack, the draft, it's an interesting setup in sports, isn't it?
Well, it's an interesting setup in all of business, Chris. It's unique to the American industrial system, and it's a way, a very logical and brilliant way to keep equal competition in the league. I've been all for it since I worked with the ABA, and I think it's a magnificent system. But I take exception to what you guys say about the draft. You can't fault the Jets with Chris Ward and Lamb Jones and the rest of them. I think they've had a terrific history.
Yeah, well, they have a terrific history, but now they have the chance to do a little bit more defensive thinking. That's what I would like to see the Jets do.
If I were a Jet fan, I'd agree.
All right, let's go back to draft headquarters at the Sheraton.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. And as they mentioned, the draft has had a very long and storied history starting in 1936 up to today as we begin the 46th edition of the player selection, the National Football League Collegiate Player Draft. Back at our broadcast center, Bob Lee has also prepared another look at this 1981 National Football League Draft. Bob?
Thank you very much, George. So much preparation goes into this draft, the scouting, the computers, the money, and the time and the people that's involved. But there's one team that belongs to no scouting combine in the National Football League. They also happen to own the current Super Bowl trophy. They're the Oakland Raiders. Ron Barr is standing by now in Oakland, California, to give us an idea how the world champs approach this draft.
From here, we'll be telling you what the National Football League's Western teams do. Down at San Diego, they'll probably go defensive in the first round as Don Coryell tries to get some cornerbacks. He has an aging offensive line, but still the emphasis probably will be defensive with Jack Pardee as new defensive coordinator. The same probably will be true up in Seattle with Jack Patera as Jack Patera tries to bolster his defense, but he'd also like to try to put some output in his offense, so he may go for Freeman McNeil in the first round. The same thing at Denver as Dan Reeves, the new coach there, tries to revitalize that Bronco offense. He too would like to have Freeman McNeil. Across the bay at San Francisco, Bill Walsh wants cornerbacks or anybody in the defensive backfield, so Kenny Easley or Ronnie Lott may be the pick there. Here at the Raider headquarters, they are coming off a world championship season, so their pick will be something of a stockpiling nature. And we have with us Al Ocasal, executive assistant to Al Davis. Al, how are you all approaching this draft?
Well, not much differently than usual. You know, we've won our world championship for the second time in 5 years. We did it with great veteran talent, and we feel that's how we'll do it in the future. What we're looking for in the draft are people 3 years down the road. Actually, the 81 season is where they'll come in here and learn the system, begin to develop the motivation, traditions of the Raiders. In 1982, they'll be playing some special situation substitution, and in 1983, for the most part, pushing their way up. We've only had 7 rookies start here since 1967. We win with veteran people, but we win.
Thanks a lot, Al. So the Raiders will be going with the team they have, but trying to stockpile some quality players. They'll be picking 21st and 28th in that first round. From the Raider headquarters, I'm Ron Barr.
Thank you, Ron. They are the only team, the Raiders, with 2 first-round selections this year. Let's go back now to the Sheraton and our own George Grant. George?
Thank you very much, Bob. The way things are developing here, we are waiting for pick number 1. The New Orleans Saints will have that first selection, and the rumors that we have, the Oakland rumors, the New Orleans rumors, we understand in talking with people during the course of the last couple of days, and there you see the Saints table as we're developing the last-minute preparation at the New Orleans table. Dan Simmons there, you see shuffling the papers as they're getting ready to pick on pick number 1. Paul, what do you think is going to happen as far as the trade possibilities are concerned? It's a domino effect. If one moves, then there may be 2 or 3 in the next 4 or 5 picks.
Well, it's your dominoes, my picks in the magazine. I think New Orleans is going to pick Rodgers. I talked to John Meekum the night before last, and he was complaining about the price. He gave me something like a $5 million package that Jack Mills is asking. Jack Mills is Rodgers' agent. He was Meekum's fraternity brother in college. And Meekum says that Jack Mills is just an errand boy, and Jim Carlin, the South Carolina coach, is calling the shot. They're crying poverty. They're saying the price is too big. And if they don't take him, that's why. But, you know, this is all draft talk. Doesn't mean anything yet.
How about the Rams? The Ferragamo defection yesterday became official. What possibilities are there?
I don't think they'll pick Campbell in the first round. I think if they upgrade, now I projected trade with the Jets to get up to the 3rd pick. I think they'll take the super running back, McNeil, and try and go with Hayden. Klosterman keeps saying how great Hayden is.
All right, well, we'll see as it develops during the course of now the next 10 minutes. They'll be making that first pick in about 7 or 8 minutes. Let's check back up in the gallery with Leandra Riley. Leandra.
We're up here with some of the fans, and right now there's a young man here who happens to be a Jet fan. His name is Evan Glass. I don't know if you could see Evan in the darkness here, but Evan, you said that the scouts, and let's move a little bit more into our lighting here. Evan, yeah. You weren't particularly happy with the scouting situation. How do you feel about the way the scouts set up their rating?
Well, the scouts judge the players mainly on the All-Star game. And if a player plays poorly in the All-Star game, he doesn't count it as a detriment to him. Whereas if he plays well, you know, he just adds points onto the system. So as where Lomax played poorly in the All-Star game, it was his first real competition. He still played poorly, and they accepted as he played well, so it counted as a benefit to him. But in reality, for another ball player, like for Herman, it would have been a detriment to him.
Do you think that there should be a detrimental type system? In other words, it shouldn't be all positive?
Yeah, because if he plays poorly against, like, Lomax is finally playing against players of his equal caliber. So for this is the first time that he plays against players of his equal, and he doesn't play well, and it doesn't count as a strike against him. It seems to me to be ridiculous.
Okay, that's how the fans feel about the scouting situation. Let's go back to George Grant and see if we're ready for our first pick.
Thanks, Leandra. We are approaching pick number 1. You remember when we moved to the first couple of picks of last year, there was excitement, and a lot of the fans of the gallery got involved in it because it involved the Jets. They traded between 13 and 20 in order to get their pick from San Francisco to try to get that first-round pick, and they wound up taking Lamb Jones. We'll see if that kind of suspense is upcoming. We'll be back with more of the 1981 ESPN coverage of the National Football League draft in just a minute. But first, let's go back to Bob Lee at our broadcast center.
Thank you very much, George. We were talking to Dick Vermeil on Sunday Special, and he said, Bud, that the firm policy, for example, of the Eagles, never to trade a 1, 2, or 3 first, second, or third round draft pick. What is the feeling having coached in the pros? Do different clubs, is there that much of a variance on policies? Obviously, we're looking towards the first round when L.A. may want to make a move up to maybe even to Seattle's position for it. But what's your feeling on it?
So this draft was defensive dominance, which this draft produced multiple legendary defenders, linebacker revolution, Lawrence Taylor changed how defenses and offenses operated.
Basically,
strong depth, elite talent was found beyond the first round in this draft. And the impact on the 1980s NFL, many players
that really relates to the Packers, too, where Bob
championship
Starr is no longer
teams,
GM. He has only 1 year remaining on the contract. The feeling is he may go for the immediate need and not look at the long-term need, for example, of a quarterback. He may go for his defensive backfield this year.
I would recommend that.
Howard, as you have documented so well in the sporting news, as we have a variety of picks owned by other teams, some of these trades are bizarre at best when you think of, for example, some of the George Allen moves that have been made. He simply needed a pick several years ago, and he traded away, he gave away the farm.
1977, it was the 7th round of the draft, and George wanted a tight end. So he made a deal with the Rams, got the Rams pick in the 7th round that year, and their 9th. He drafted Reggie Haynes and Mike Northington, and for those extra 2 picks, George gave the Rams his 3rd round pick this year. And of course, George is not there anymore, and the Redskins don't have a pick in the 3rd round. And what they ended up doing was trading a number 3 for a 7 and a 9. So that's a kind of trade that certainly didn't work out. A lot of the trades, of course, we're hearing about and having speculated on the 1st round are switches in position. I've heard that St. Louis and San Francisco might be talking because the 49ers want Kenny Easley and they're afraid he might be gone. We've heard, of course, the talk with the Rams and the Jets. So it's going to be interesting to see what trades happen, but there might not be as much as there's been in the past because the teams, again, are holding on to their picks because it is a deep draft.
Paul, you know the Bills so well. They did so well last year. They're way down in the draft. They have definite defensive needs. Do you think maybe they might be going quickly?
Well, you know, the Buffalo Bills need one thing. They need a fullback, Bob, so badly, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them to try to trade up.
Okay. You're watching exclusive live coverage of the National Football League Draft, the 1981 college selection, live right here on ESPN.
There you see the gallery as the suspense builds during the course of probably the next minute and a half to 2 minutes. Pick number 1 will be made of this National Football League Collegiate Player Draft. There is Commissioner Pete Rozelle. To his right is Jan Van Duzer. To his left, Val Pinchback, the Director of Broadcasting. Van Duzer, the Director of this draft. And as you might imagine, the talk at this moment centers on the New Orleans table. Will they make a trade? Will they pick George Rogers? Or will they go with Lawrence Taylor? We should tell you that the commissioner indicated to us just a couple of moments ago, at this point, there is no indication that any trades have been made at this point. But again, remember, we should reiterate, this is a domino effect. If one pick is made, then there is a possibility of maybe 1 or 2 trades that are contingent on that pick possibly coming to fruition. So we won't know until the wheels go into motion. And those wheels are just now beginning to turn. Commissioner Rozelle, within moments, is set to make pick number 1. And we will go from now through till 6 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock Pacific with all the latest. Paul?
Well, I hope there's no trade. I projected Rogers. one interesting thing is I don't see Rogers in the room. Usually they have the first player here, and I don't see him around, which makes me a little nervous.
Okay, here's Commissioner Pete Rozelle. He is ready to make the first selection. That's Commissioner Rozelle ready at the podium now to make the first selection of draft number 1. Joe Ryan of the NFL offices beginning to come over. He's got to turn the microphone on before you can hear the commissioner. So while there are multi-million-dollar operations waiting, they have to wait for a 15-cent light switch.
The 46th Annual National Football League Selection Meeting is now in session. First choice, first round, belongs to the New Orleans Saints. Saints first up.
There's the card which will hold with it the first pick of this 1981 draft. Each team has 15 minutes to make
New
their
Orleans
selection.
Saints take as the first player the 46th Annual Draft, running back George Rogers of South Carolina. Next up, the New York Giants.
The clock will recycle, and coming in right in front of us is George Rogers. You'll be seeing him momentarily onto your screen. The running back, the Heisman Trophy winner from South Carolina, George
The New York
Rogers.
Giants, first round selection, Lawrence Taylor, linebacker, North Carolina.
There you have pick number 1 and pick number 2, and here you have George Rogers coming to the podium.
Next up, New York Jets. This time I would like to introduce the first player selected in the draft, George Rogers.
I don't really know what to say, under all of the circumstances. I'm too excited really to say anything. New Orleans chose me, and I'm sure going to be getting my best, and that's 100% every time I go out on the field. And I'd like to thank everybody here for the hospitality that they gave me so far. In New Orleans, I'm coming.
There you have George Rogers, the first pick of this 1981 draft, the man who scored 186 points, rushed for 31 touchdowns, 22 straight games over 100 yards. He is the number 1 pick in draft 1981 here from New York. The number 2 pick, Lawrence Taylor. So far, Paul Zimmerman, things have gone as expected.
Yeah, but I think I'm headed for a downer because I had L.A. trading for the Jets there pick for McNeil. I think McNeil will be the pick, but it looks like the trade hasn't been made.
Sal Marciano?
Everything is going along smoothly except for Commissioner Rozelle. He was stuck in an elevator about a half hour ago. Then his PA system didn't work. It took the Saints and then the Giants only a matter of seconds to make their choices. And we have
George Rogers will be available.
George Rogers still on the podium with Commissioner Rozelle posing for pictures. The Jets are next, and as everybody keeps saying,
Actually, something key to note is that the tradition of top prospects appearing in person grew alongside the draft's evolution to a major television event in the 1980s.
Pick number 3, let's go to the commissioner.
The New York Jets, first round selection. UCLA running back, Freeman McNeil.
The Jets did what was rumored for the last couple of days. They go with McNeil. There will be no Rams trade up, at least at the number 3 position.
First round, the Seattle Seahawks.
Okay, the rumors on Seattle. Hugh Green has been someone that Jack Patera has coveted. Of course, last year they took another Green, Jacob Green, who's a great defensive end. Patera himself was a great linebacker. Some indications are that maybe they would go with Green and make him into a linebacker. Rogers has gone number 1 to the Saints. Number 2, Lawrence Taylor, the linebacker, to the Giants. Number 3, Freeman McNeil to the Jets. You heard the crowd reaction upstairs. Leandra Riley is upstairs. Of course, you know that this is a giant jet-packed house because the draft is held in New York City. Leandra, what's the reaction?
Well, the reaction up here has been that they wanted Hugh Green chosen, but with me is John Capolitano. John, who are you a fan of?
Nobody. I absolutely have no professional team that's a favorite of mine whatsoever.
Why are you at the draft then?
Because I am a college football fan, and I study it, and I do this every year, and I try to see how well I do against the professional scouts.
All right, then after the players graduate, they're selected in the draft, what happens to your interest in football?
Well, I try to follow some of the players, to see how well they do, but not on I don't go crazy like
Repeat selection.
Okay, let's go back to the floor.
New York Jets first-round choice, Freeman McNeil, running back, UCLA.
There you have it, the commissioner just reaffirming that pick by the Jets. Some Jets fans wishing that they could have taken it back and made another one. That tells you something about the Jets, Al, because at the end of the season, Clark Gaines limped through a mini drill a little while ago, a couple of weeks ago. He's not 100%. Harper, there are indications that he is not 100%. So they went with the one thing they thought they needed offensively, some speed outside. McNeil, some people have regarded as even possibly a better potential running back than George Rogers.
Still, it must have been an agonizing decision for Walt Michaels and the staff to make because of the obvious deficiencies on defense of the Jets, and Walt, of course, is a defensive-oriented coach, and yet his defensive teams have been awful. Last year, the Jets ranked 21st among the 28 teams in yardage allowed and 25th amongst the 28 teams in points allowed. They're obviously porous. They obviously need help on defense, but they had to get a running back to complement the passing game. And for Walt Michaels in his 5th year, a very big decision, perhaps the biggest decision of his coaching career.
Also, we should tell you that Joe Gardy is the new defensive coordinator for the Jets. He is regarded as strong in Michaels' organization as well. So there is a feeling that they wanted defense, but they end up going for McNeil. Over at Mike Minucci's, Chris Berman is there, and Chris was just with Hickey and company a couple of days ago. How do you read this one, Chris?
Still here with Frank Ross and Jack Dolphin. I want to make a correction that Jack is the second commissioner of the ABA, not the first. George Mikan was a little bit bigger. I'll tell you, the frowns on some people's faces here in Minucci's for the offensive pick of the Jets are all around. Let me ask you this, Jack. Everything has gone pretty much as planned right away. That doesn't happen most of the time with first few picks.
Oh, it happens quite seldom because if New Orleans had gone with somebody else, it changes everybody's plans. This is like as professional as like working on a stock exchange floor. You know, you don't know what to expect. It's one of the most exciting moments in American sports.
And then all of a sudden, all the teams use their time clock.
Right. That'll happen before the day's over.
All right. Well, let's go back right now to the draft center at the Sheraton.
Thank you very much, Chris. We are standing by for pick number 4, which will be the Seattle Seahawks. Indications have been that possibly, if Hugh Green was available, they would go with Green. We will see shortly if that is the case. Each team in the first 2 rounds gets 15 minutes between selections. Following that, it is 5 minutes per selection. With a fellow who is no stranger to the story of the draft because he's a broadcaster as well as an all-pro punter. Sam Rosen is here with Dave Jennings of the Giants. Sam.
Thank you, George. And Dave Jennings, the New York Giants, number 2 pick in the draft overall, go for a linebacker, Lawrence Taylor. What are your thoughts about that pick?
Well, there's really no surprise there. It's been written for, so many weeks. That's the guy we were after. I thought something might happen with that first pick with New Orleans. Maybe a little trade, because I know Dallas is interested, and maybe a few other teams, but really no surprises. And from what I understand, the coaches I've talked with and the scouts, Taylor he could be the best football player, pure football player in the draft, so it's got to help us. And get a pick like that, it's just really thrilling.
Now, he's a talented player, but the Giants seem to be deep in linebackers, and it's a team that didn't score all that many points last season. There was a lot of talk, why not go for offense?
Well, that's true, but if you remember in our last game against Oakland, we didn't have any of our linebackers who start for us, weren't even playing in the game. So we had a lot of injuries last year, and he is really going to help us. Offensively, I guess the Giants feel we can get a good running back or a tight end on the 2nd and 3rd rounds, and that's what we're going to look forward to in the next hour or two.
There was some controversy earlier this week that some of the linebackers, some of the defensive players might walk out.
Well, I think that's just talk, and I really believe if they decided to walk, Coach Perkins would open the door for them and give them plain fare wherever they're going. I think it was just talk, and I don't really think there was a lot to the talk.
Thank you, Dave Jennings.
Sam, let me ask you one question before Dave gets away.
Yes,
how about
George?
his contract? He's been going back and forth for the last year on a possible contract.
What about your contract? They're talking about your contract with the Giants. Is things all settled with you?
All settled as of a couple of months ago, and I'm looking forward to about 20 more years with the Giants.
Okay, and he just bought a house in Upper Saddle River, New Jersey, closer to Giants Stadium, so he'll be close to the Giants, within punting distance of Giants Stadium.
With the wind in my back, yes.
Back to you, George.
Thanks, Sam. Bill Parcells, the new defensive coordinator of the Giants. So the indications are they're going to that 3-4 defense. They want the linebackers, and they feel Taylor can go inside or outside in that 3-4 setup. A significant pick by the Giants. Lawrence Taylor, the great linebacker, regarded as the premier linebacker. They put him on a par with Hugh Green. The only difference is he's about 20 pounds heavier and a little bit bigger. That's why Taylor went before Hugh Green. We'll be back with more of ESPN's coverage of the 1981 National Football League Collegiate Draft after you have time to take a sip of water, too.
Here's the snap. The ball is down. Dempsey kicks. It's on the way. It is! Tom Dempsey kicked the longest field goal in NFL history, 63 yards. Red Grange ran his way into the pages of NFL history with men like Jim Thorpe, Bronco Nagurski, and Sammy Baugh. They are all here. The records, the men, the glory, and the memories. And you can see and hear them at the NFL Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. Don't miss it.
We're waiting for Seattle to make their selection. The Seahawks have approximately 6 minutes left, each team with 15 minutes on the first round. We had our first 3 selections in 4 minutes. George Rogers to New Orleans, Lawrence Taylor to the Jets, Freeman McNeil to, Taylor to the Giants, and McNeil to the Jets. Congratulations, Howard Balsey. You had it bullseye right on the nose.
3 for 3. I don't know if I should put one on the head or not.
Who do you quickly see as the Seahawks' next selection?
Well, I projected them taking Hugh Green, and the Seahawks have always been a team that's surprised, and they're taking a lot of time, but it'll be hard for them to pass up Hugh Green. And then the Cardinals, I think, should grab linebacker
That is
A.J.
true
Junior
that
from Alabama,
actually the
but the
Seahawks were
Cardinals so often in the past haven't done what everyone expects them to do.
Bud, we heard some of the reaction as perhaps to be expected about the Jets selection. They have the defensive needs. They go for McNeil. But let's just a quick thought on exactly that selection, the offensive move.
Well, if your offense is good enough, then you've got the ball the majority of the time. If you don't move it offensively, then you're on the field playing defense, and you don't win if you're on the field playing defense very often.
Of course, those selections, Paul, that were made so quickly in the first 4 minutes, now it really gets down to nuts and bolts time, whether someone's going to make a move, because you need those 15 minutes not to let people sweat, but to work behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing is going to happen when you get down towards Tampa Bay and San Francisco. They both need defensive backs, and I wouldn't be surprised to see either one of those two teams make a trade with possibly New England for a defensive back.
Okay, Seattle has made their selection. It is Kenny Easley. Let's go back now to New York.
Thank you, Bob. We're back here at the Sheraton. Just a couple of seconds ago, the commissioner stepped up and announced that the Seattle Seahawks, picking 4th in the National Football League 81 draft, had taken Ken Easley, the defensive back from the University of California at Los Angeles. Next up, the St. Louis Cardinals. As you might imagine, Paul Zimmerman, defensive backs are a premium in this draft. What do you think St. Louis will go to?
Ronnie Lott or Hugh Green, but depends on how much they want Campbell. When I talked to them, they said they want a defense first, Lott or Green, but don't be surprised if Campbell slips in there.
St. Louis Cardinals 5-11 last year. They've had 6 coaches during the course of the last 11 years. That tells you something about their draft history as well. Greg Gumbel has a wrap-up on it for us from our broadcast center as we look at the Cardinals' history of the NFL draft.
Cardinals have had some fairly good drafts recently. The trouble is they don't make up for the bad St. Louis draft history, which dates all the way back to 1970. From 1970 through 1978, the St. Louis Cardinals had 29 first, second, or third round picks, and of those 29 picks, only 4 made any headway at all in a St. Louis uniform. That's a lot of premium errors. Take a look at the chart, and it will tell you the story. It shows 10 draftees in the St. Louis starting lineup, 3 more through free agency, 1 on waivers, and 2 through the trade routes. 1 premium error last year, and then another in 78, 3 in 77, 1 in 76, 2 in 75. The Cardinals' draft history not good at all, and that has to change if the St. Louis fortunes are to do likewise. What is needed in St. Louis is another draft like the one in 1979, which produced the likes of Otis Anderson and Joe Bostic, and not like the one in 77, which produced Steve Pozarkowitz and George Franklin.
That's right. Thanks, Greg. Here we are back at the ballroom. There you see the St. Louis Cardinals table. Gordon Beatty and Ruth Panik set to make the selection that comes from General Manager Joe Sullivan, George Boone, and Larry Wilson, who are back in St. Louis. This is a phone hookup situation. Most of the top draft people are at the home sites of these individual teams. They have representatives here. They can either be assistant coaches, equipment men, people that are part of the general manager's office. As you might imagine, at this point in time, the discussions are many-fold because the Los Angeles Rams still have the potential for trading up because still, if they want a McNeil, he is gone now, but there still is a potential with Ferragamo gone that they can go for a quarterback. Up in the gallery, Leandro Riley. Leandro, how does it look up there?
It looks pretty good. There were quite a few surprised football fans up here that Hugh Green wasn't selected, and Don Malakevich of New Jersey is one of those fans. What do you think St. Louis should do now?
I think St. Louis is going to go with Ronnie Lott. He's a defensive back, and they have a defensive backfield that's getting old. I guess Roger Worley has played a number of years, and last year when they played the Giants, he had a lot of trouble. As a matter of fact, I think they substituted for Roger Worley last year.
So you don't think they should go with Hugh Green?
Well, I don't know. I think they need help in their defensive secondary. However, they obviously know their team a little bit better than I do.
How are you doing so far in your selections?
Right now, I've picked 3 out of 4.
Not bad, 75%. Let's go back to George Grant and see what's happening on the floor.
All right, we're waiting in just a little over 10 minutes remaining on the next selection, the St. Louis Cardinals selection. Sal, so far, Paul Zimmerman's been pretty hot. He picked the first 3 athletes off the top. He picked Green to go for Seattle. Instead, it was Easley, but he was right on defense.
And so far, South Carolina and UCLA have a lock on this draft so far. The first 2 players were South Carolina players, and the
on the
next
matter
2 UCLA players. The pick of Ken Easley by Seattle.
Do you think NFL draft from the University of Pittsburgh?
Do you believe
a major reason of this was because he was a winner of the Lombardi Award, the Maxwell Award in 1980. He's the Heisman Trophy runner-up in 1980.
I think they must have had a very
All-American
interesting high-level discussion over the last 2 days. The first guy that
so when the Buccaneers selected him,
then they wanted a
7th
back.
overall pick in this draft,
Then their third
Buccaneers
need
thought
was
they just
defensive
had
back,
won the lottery.
and Lott and Easley were running neck and neck. And usually when those things come down to the wire in the wee hours of the morning, it's whoever argues the best and the longest to get outlast the others. And somebody must have been Easley's corner there.
We should indicate, too, that from a standpoint of this draft, Kenny Easley, Ronnie Lott, Smith, also from the University of Southern California, Dennis Smith, and also Dixon. Hanford Dixon regarded as a prime candidate for the top spot from a defensive standpoint. You have to imagine that when you look at what's happening this year from a defensive backfield standpoint, most of the athletes that they look at, they're going to want to move to a cornerback position one way or another. Easley, there is a question whether or not he can be switched or where he will play from a defensive standpoint. If there is a criticism, it was that he might have freelanced too much at UCLA.
Well, usually what happens is you draft a cornerback and then you move into safety. Very seldom do you draft a safety and move into cornerback. A lot they say can make that switch, but I think Easley's a pure safety.
I want to correct myself. It's Lawrence Taylor of North Carolina, not South Carolina. We're still waiting on the St. Louis pick.
We have just a little over 9 minutes remaining till the St. Louis time expires. We're standing by to see if a trade does come to fruition. We'll be back with more of the 1981 National Football League Draft exclusively on ESPN after this word. There's the scene set, 7 minutes and counting for the St. Louis Cardinals first-round pick. If you are just joining us, the Saints have taken George Rogers. You expected that. The Giants have taken Lawrence Taylor. You expected that. The Jets did not trade their pick. They picked Freeman McNeil of the University of California at Los Angeles. And Seattle picked Kenny Easley. There you see the fans upstairs in the gallery. The setting here at the Grand Ballroom at the Sheraton, as you can see, there is a lower level and an upper level. Quite simply, this used to be a pool. There used to be a swimming pool here at the Sheraton. They took the pool away, and as you can see, you end up with a gallery, which used to be the top part right around the swimming pool. And down below, the National Football League teams have set up their 28 tables from each and every team in phone communication with their offices back in their original areas. What a way it's changed. Back in the 60s and 50s, it used to be done on a blackboard, and it was more or less a shoestring operation. When the merger came, it became a big league operation, as has everything in professional football these days. So we are waiting on the St. Louis Cardinals as the clock continues to run down. After the St. Louis Cardinals pick, and you've already heard Paul Zimmerman indicate what the prospective picks may go towards, become the Green Bay Packers. There are discussions that the Packers may go for the first quarterback in this draft, but they also need help in the line.
If they're going to go for the quarterback, then there's some people that are never going to talk to them because they lied. They said Ronnie Lott was their first preference and Keith Van Horn, the tackle from SC, is their second. They said they worked Campbell out, and they're worried about his mobility. They said he didn't run sideways for them.
Paul, let me ask you, around the league, if you talk to the players, you talk to the coaches, you're regarded as one of the foremost writers and people that cover the league because you do your homework. You talk to people. You get the straight story from them. How much of a chess game is this? You talk to the player personnel people, and then what do you do afterwards? You add up what they told you, see if it pans out, and see whether or not they were straight with you?
Every year I weed out the straights from the liars. Put an X next to the liar's name and never call him again. Last year I got one. Can I say who it is?
That's all right. Okay. At Mike Minucci's, Chris Berman is there to keep us abreast of what's happening with the Giant and Jet fans and some of the other people, former players who will be there during the course of today. Let's go to Chris Berman and see what is transpiring at Minucci's as we begin to wind down to the St. Louis Cardinals pick. We are under 6 minutes now as the Cardinals are prepared to make their first selection in this first round of the National Football League draft. Chris?
Okay, George, Dave Scott and Mike Francesa are with me here from College and Pro Football News Weekly. And I guess pretty much as according to plan, Dave.
Yeah, no surprises, really. In fact, the only thing I'm surprised at is that they didn't take their full 15 minutes. It's refreshing if they've had 4 months to think about it and they went right to it.
Well, they pay for their 15 minutes. You would think they would use it.
Yeah, well, now they got other things to do. They can think about round two. It's a deep draft, and there are a lot of good players.
Mike, the Seahawks going with the defensive back, you thought maybe it'd be Hugh Green. I know I did.
I did because he's a defensive leader. I think he had a tremendous career at Pittsburgh. But I feel that team needs a lot of help everywhere on defense. And another priority would be a tight end, and I feel they can get a good one on the second round.
Do you think that Easley will go back to a cornerback rather than a safety?
I feel he has the talent to play any position in the defensive backfield.
Okay.
Probably safety.
Yeah, all right, he can play anywhere, and there's still some rumblings with some New York fans over the picks. We'll get back to that in a little while. Now let's go back to the guys at the Sheraton.
There you have it. We are winding down on the picks for the St. Louis Cardinals. As you can see, it's 3 minutes and 41 seconds. It has to indicate at this point, Sal Marciano, that something is working. The Rams, we know, wanted to trade up. They traded from 20 down to 9 with the Redskins pick. They wanted to trade up possibly as high as the Jets pick. They weren't successful in doing that. They may try to be dealing at this point with St. Louis.
Well, with 3 minutes and 20-odd seconds left to go, this is a heck of a time to pull a trade. Paul, the Cardinals didn't have a bad draft last year.
What usually happens when you see it going down like this is something has happened that they weren't expecting, like maybe the Easley pick, and now they're trying to rush in that last-minute trade, get it under the wire. I would say if LA is trying to make that trade, it would probably be for Campbell, but I think he might be around when they draft, because now Hugh Green is available. That'll move it all down one, and I think maybe they can take a chance if they want him. I don't think they do. It's very complicated.
If you're wondering what happens if St. Louis goes past the 3-minute mark, they don't lose the pick. They just lose the moment of the pick. In other words, if they were to pass the 3-minute mark and that card was not in the hands of the commissioner or one of the commissioner's representatives, then they would go down one more notch. So they would pick after Green Bay, whoever would make that pick. On the floor, Sam Rosen with more reaction.
Thank you, George. I'm here with Hub Arkush, the publisher of Pro Football Weekly. And Hub, 4 picks have been made thus far. What do you think?
Well, no real surprises. Possibly Kenny Easley going to Seattle, but they were looking for defensive help. They went to the secondary instead of on the line is all.
What do you think's taking St. Louis so long?
They're trying to decide between a quarterback they might have to wait a couple of years for, Campbell or Lomax, or going for maybe E.J. Jr., some help at linebacker.
What do you think they need most?
I would go for the linebacker. I don't think they can wait a couple of years right now.
Later on, the Rams have to be affected by the defection of Vince Ferragamo to the CFL.
They could be talking to St. Louis right now, trying to get that pick. Other than that, maybe talking to San Francisco. They're trying to get in position for Rich Campbell. That's what they're looking for now.
Okay, what about the picks that have been made, and how do you feel they'll help? George Rogers, New Orleans Saints.
Rogers should give immediate help. Any one of the first 10 players chosen should step right in and play, and I think so far the first 4 players named all will.
Thank you. Hub Arkush of Pro Football Weekly. Let's go back to George Grant.
There's your clock, 1 minute and 25 seconds as the St. Louis Cardinals and their table work to try to pull this deal off. Gordon Beatty and Rube Panic trying to keep in communication with the Brain Trust. Joe Sullivan, the man who's been in charge of their operations at one level or another since 1973. George Boone and Larry Wilson as well back in St. Louis trying to make this pick. If you're wondering why Hugh Green has gone this far, he was regarded as a can't-miss prospect. The simple reason, there are basically two, I would think, Sal. First is that he played defensive end in college. He's going to play linebacker as a professional. The question is, how can he adjust to that? The second factor is his size. That's why Taylor went before him, because Taylor is bigger, taller, and weighs more. So that was one of the factors in the Green situation to this point.
We get that if it's fine lines here. We're talking as if we're discussing thoroughbreds getting ready for the Kentucky Derby. What's the difference between them? Obviously, it's all a matter of opinion. Let's go to Commissioner Rozelle.
Stand by. Here's the commissioner. You see the clock run down with 21 seconds. That's the St. Louis Cardinals table. The Packers follow the Cardinals. If they do not hit it within that clock time, the Packers will get the count. Unless the card has been handed to one of the commissioner's representatives.
St. Louis selects.
Okay.
First round choice. E.J. Jr., linebacker, Alabama.
E.J. Jr., Esther James Jr. III. That card again, the card has to be handed in prior to that minute mark. Let's go back up to the gallery where Leandra has the St. Louis Cardinal fan. Leandra?
With me is Walter Mack, who 3 months ago was in the hospital with open heart surgery, but you weren't going to miss this draft.
Absolutely not.
Any surprises with E.J. Jr.?
Not too much. I figured he was going to go in the top 1 to 5 picks, you know.
Okay, who was your first choice for St. Louis, though?
I thought Lott would go, or Hugh Green.
Are you surprised that Hugh Green hasn't been drafted yet?
Yes, I am, because he's a dynamite ball player. I thought he was going to be at least number 3 in the whole draft.
Okay, that's the St. Louis opinion.
Thank you, Leandra. As it stands right now, the Green Bay Packers have just round up the clock, and they have approximately 13 and a half minutes to make it their pick. So far, Rodgers has gone to the Saints, Lawrence Taylor to the Giants, Freeman McNeil to the Jets, Kenny Easley to Seattle, E.J. Jr. has gone to St. Louis. The Packers are up with their pick. We'll be back with more of ESPN live and exclusive coverage of the National Football League player selection after this word.
Today's selection, they have approximately 13 minutes to make their first round selection. Bud Wilkinson, you know the Cards very well. They go for a linebacker, E.J. Jr. I know it was as surprising here in the studio as it was in New York.
Well, I think that obviously they decided defense was their major need, whether to go with a defensive back or a linebacker. Linebackers are vitally important to stopping the opponent, but they don't beat you in one play like a defensive back does. I was a little bit surprised, though. I think that they feel they can get a quarterback later in the draft. Jimmy Hart's been a great player, but Jimmy's getting to the end of his career.
Some of the scouting reports, Paul, say that Junior is the best and was the best athlete on Alabama this past year, but you don't share that opinion. You don't think he's in that same class with Green, do you?
No, I don't. I saw E.J. Jr. play, or I did 3 other games last year, and I'm not that impressed with it. I don't think he is in the caliber of Hugh Green. I just think that Hugh Green, something is happening, and Howard, I know, has some opinions, but something's happening going down the line, and I just can't believe that Hugh Green has not been taken ahead of E.J. Jr.
Well, let's give Howard credit. He had the pick on, dead on, but that was predicated on Green having been selected already. Is there a mob psychology now in effect that maybe there's something about Green that people are asking themselves?
I think that happens a lot, Bob. It happened a couple of years ago with Kellen Winslow. A lot of people expected him to be taken very early, but as each team passed on him, everyone else started thinking, well, maybe he's not the guy we think he is. And again, Junior was taken ahead of Green. He's bigger. He weighs more than Green. And so the teams now are thinking, well, maybe that team knows something that we don't know. And it sort of passes itself on down all through the round. And that might be what's happening with Hugh Green. And now it's going to be interesting to see where Green does end up. We got Green Bay selecting now. I still think they'll go with Ronnie Lott. But Green might be a type of guy that might go to Tampa Bay then. It's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Let's backtrack one pick back to Seattle, selecting defensive back Kenny Easley out of UCLA, a man who has played both safety and cornerback, plays up well like a linebacker, but has the free safety instincts. You think that's a good selection for the Seahawks, don't you, Paul?
I really do. I had a chance to talk to Chuck Allen. He's in charge of college scouting, and he said that they are a solid football team. And everybody, you know, of course, they did not win a game at home last year. But he said, we have our first 22 people are very solid. They needed a defensive back. They need a defensive end, and they would like to have a backup running back to go with Smith. So Seattle is sitting in a great position. They got one of the people that they really wanted, and that is Kenny Easley, and he's going to fit right into their scheme of things.
Green Bay is up at this point. We chatted about their situation earlier in that Bart Starr has 1 year remaining on the contract. They need a wide receiver. They need help on the offensive line. They have not drafted well. They had no starters, Bud, come out of last year's draft.
Well, I think they'll pick a starter this time.
They really are in a situation, aside from personnel, where I think the public, the fans of publicly held corporation, they won't stand for this much longer, will they?
Well, one of the problems with the Packers last year is some of the guys they drafted were hurt, and one went to Canada, Bruce Clark. George Cumbie got hurt. Mark Lee, the cornerback drafted on the second round, got hurt. And that's where the Packers really had troubles last year, was in injuries more than anything else.
And this really sets up now the Rams, as these other selections go down, they still will have that quarterback they want available in the 9th selection right now.
That's right. It's going to be interesting, really. And Hugh Green is becoming the key to this all, because the Rams will be able to get Campbell or even Lomax. Both of them are probably going to be there. But maybe Hugh Green will still be there. That one pick has really thrown it out.
Bud.
Well, Ken Easley, just one more point. It's a rare thing to have somebody who can play both corner and safety. Usually, you can play one or the other, and that's a luxury to have back and go either way.
For the recapping once again the initial picks, George Rogers, as selected, went in the first pick to New Orleans. The Giants selecting Lawrence Taylor. Third selection belonging to the New York Jets. They went for the multi-purpose running back, Freeman McNeil out of UCLA. Then Seattle selecting defensive back Ken Easley. Seattle making their selection rather quickly. In fact, the first 3 selections, if you were with us, made in the span of about 4 minutes. E.J. Jr., as the St. Louis Cardinals went right down to the final moments, the card was handed up to Commissioner Pete Rozelle exactly as their 15 minutes did expire. They went for the linebacker, actually the defensive end, but he'll be a linebacker in the pros, E.J. Jr. And Green Bay has, by our reckoning, about 8 minutes left on their selection. Howard?
Very quickly, one thing that I've heard on San Francisco is that the 49ers wanted Lott or Easley. And Lott is probably going to end up going now, I think, before the 49ers pick.
Yeah, Kenny Easley and Ronnie Lott in this draft would both go on to have great careers in the NFL, both being Hall of Famers on their own respective teams.
Of course, Washington has selections looking way down there, number 20. Cincinnati has the 10th overall pick. Paul, do you think that you mentioned earlier about possibly the Bills making the move? Is there anybody else you think in the lower rungs of the first round? Seeing these developments now, seeing Green available, is someone going to make a grab now and try and make that trade with someone, say, who is 7 through 12 who could still have a shot at Green?
I really don't think so, but I have to just admire L.A. for their going from 20 down to 9, and the way things are happening, it just shows how smart they really were. Well, they're in a great position to get what they want, a quarterback.
It's all going to work out possibly for the Rams. They may have that quarterback still at the 9th position. Let's go back now to New York City and George Grant. George?
Thank you, Bob. Commissioner Pete Rozelle.
Green Bay Packers, first round choice, California quarterback Rich Campbell. Next up, Tampa Bay.
There's the first quarterback selected in this 1981 NFL draft. Rich Campbell, the quarterback from the University of California at Berkeley. Campbell, as you know, set records for pass completion percentage, 70% in a season, over 60%, 64% for his career. The big question mark on Rich Campbell was his knee. He had ligament surgery last year, did not last the season, but according to all the statistics and all the timings that they've had with him, he's 100%. And that's why they rank him ahead of Neil Lomax from a quarterback standpoint.
I wonder if this choice really will satisfy the fans in Green Bay. It seems to be a public kind of pick. We have a coach who was, of course, a great quarterback who was 1 year remaining on his contract. And I guess the fans really can't knock this choice, and you can't knock the Packers for picking Campbell because they have 2 quarterbacks who are now in their 30s.
We don't know what the fans in Green Bay. Hold on, here we go, Tampa Bay.
First round choice, Hugh Green, linebacker, Pittsburgh. Next up, San Francisco 49ers.
So Hugh Green has gone to Tampa Bay. There is your linebacker. mentioned that Rich Campbell went to Green Bay, the number 6 collection. Tampa Bay, the number 7 selection to Hugh Green. Up in the gallery, Leandra Riley. We don't know what the people in Green Bay are saying right now about the selection of Campbell, but we do know what the people here in New York are saying. Leandra, what's the reaction to Rich Campbell in Green Bay?
Okay, with me is Joe Kurz, and he's, I guess you could say, ditching work. You were a little surprised at the Green Bay selection.
Yes, I was. I was looking for them to take someone who could help them right away and get them in their playoffs this season, but...
You don't think Campbell can do that?
No, it's definitely a move for the future, and with the move they made, because, well, they got rid of Starr so they can make this move, because I guess they figured Starr would take someone who could help them right away. It was a good move, though, because it will, in years to come, it will pay off.
Okay, you said that the offensive line and the defensive backs need some strength. Who do you think they should go with next time?
In the second round?
Long shot
It
away.
depends who's available. So, I don't know, Dixon, if he's available.
If Dixon's available, okay, we're going to keep an eye out for that. And let's go back to George Grand and get some reactions maybe about the Tampa Bay situation.
Thanks, Leandra. As it stands right now, Rich Campbell has gone to Green Bay, the first quarterback to go in the draft. He comes from a great tradition. Joe Roth, Bartkowski from California. Ron Barr is in Oakland with this reaction on someone who should know about Campbell.
Here at the Raider headquarters, we've just learned Rich Campbell is going to be playing his professional football at Green Bay. And with us is the head coach of the Cal Bears, the man that coached Rich Campbell, Roger Theater. Roger, what about Rich going to Green Bay? How will he fit in with their program?
Well, of course, I think Rich should fit in anywhere. We think he's in the mold of some of the great quarterbacks that we've had, very similar to a Bartkowski. I have no doubt that Rich is going to be a tremendous asset to the Green Bay organization.
Okay, the reports that we have on Campbell is that he can't throw long. He's accurate within 30 yards. Can you talk about that?
Well, I tell you, if there isn't a fact that Rich Campbell can't throw, I've never seen a situation like that. I think in our case last year when people were saying that about Rich, the problem we had, he's such a great quarterback that every game we played seemed like when the ball was snapped, the defensive backs were running for the other goal line. And we didn't have the great speed, the Wesley Walkers that we've had. So I think that's the reason people were saying, because Rich really didn't do it.
Okay, thank you.
Rather than the Redskins. All right, the other trade. The Los Angeles Rams trade linebacker Bob Brudzinski and a second-round draft choice in this draft, which is the last pick in the second round that the Rams previously acquired from Oakland. So they trade Brudzinski and their pick, which is the last choice in the second round, to the Miami Dolphins in return for 3 draft choices. The Dolphins' second and third picks in this draft and a second-round pick in 1982, next year's draft, that the Dolphins previously acquired from Tampa Bay. All right, I'll review that for you. Rams trade linebacker Bob Brudzinski and a second-round choice in this draft, which is the last pick in the second round the Rams had previously acquired from Oakland, to the Miami Dolphins in return for 3 choices. The Dolphins' second and third picks in this draft, and a second-round choice in 1982 the Dolphins previously acquired from Tampa Bay.
There you have it. That's Commissioner Pete Rozelle, and as we were coming back, we didn't want to interrupt. 2 trades announced to recap. Neither one of them have to do with this first round, but both of them rather important because they involve significant names. Joe Washington from Baltimore to the Redskins. Washington hopefully wants to put their running back situation back in check. It was horrendous last year. Joe Theismann had nothing to do with anyone behind him simply because he had no running power, no running game at all behind him. So they hope to put that back together again. And as far as Brudzinski is concerned, Paul Zimmerman, there's been no secret. Brudzinski's been on the shopping block all week long, peddled to anybody who would talk about possible moving up in the draft.
I sort of figured Buffalo would be the key. I knew they were very tight, and Chuck Knox liked Brudzinski from his LA days. Miami was a sort of outside possibility. Everybody said no. Shula doesn't like people who walk out of camp, but I guess he does.
I guess the loss of John Riggins last year certainly was devastating to Washington. I don't know that Joe Washington can remedy that, but he can at least add some offense to that backfield.
Well, the thing that Riggins did so well, and what Washington also does so well, is running that play route out of the backfield. I mean, they're a terrific pass receiving target. I mean, I saw a game in Washington caught 13 balls. That's going to be a real shot in the arm for that dump-off passing game.
I had the same feeling that you did about Buffalo and Brzezinski, because Isaiah Robertson has been a washout. They're paying him big bucks. The big question was, would they get Cousineau back? We probably won't know until May if he comes back from the CFL. But this might be an indication that they feel they can get him back.
Yeah, but then you have to ask where does Cousineau play. I mean, they have that 3-4. He's been playing inside up there. I would assume he's inside. I mean, the man they have to replace is obviously Robertson, and maybe they feel Cousineau can play on the outside. I don't know. I don't think Robertson was a washout. I think they just did. He just did what they wanted from him. He was a little better than the guy he replaced. Of course, the problem on the team was the big money he made.
All right, the draft selection process right now. The two trades that have been announced in the last couple of minutes. Joe Washington goes to the Washington Redskins. There you see the clock with 10 minutes remaining on the next selection in the draft, which is the San Francisco 49ers. And the other trade, the Rams send Brzezinski to the Dolphins. Brzezinski plus a second-round pick, which is the last pick, to the Dolphins for 3 picks. The Dolphins' second and third-round picks of this year and a number 2 in 1982. And if you were listening to Ron Barr in Oakland, we did come out rather rapidly just to give you a picture of what's happening with the trade. Obviously, this activity is a little bit of a telethon. It's a little bit of a news story. It's a little bit of play-by-play. It's a little bit of everything, and that's what we're going to be trying to do all day long. First of all and foremost, keep you abreast of what's happening here from a news standpoint. And secondly, as you look at the San Francisco table with Roy Gilbert and the rest of the crew there waiting to make their pick, as we're under 10 minutes now. And secondly, to get the color of what's happening as well. Our first object is from a news standpoint to fill you in on what happens minute by minute. The second object to give you the color of it. And as we heard in Oakland, the people out there feel that Rich Campbell can very definitely be another page in the great history of California quarterbacks.
And speaking about the West Coast, I know it's very early in the morning out there. All this wheeling and dealing by the Rams, according to my figures, the Rams at this point still have 8 picks in the first 5 rounds.
And they now with these 2 picks, they leapfrog ahead of New Orleans with the total number of picks. I believe they now have 19 picks. They had coming in with these extra picks now. They had a total of 19 picks. So they would leapfrog ahead of the Saints as far as the most total number of picks in this year's draft. We'll be back with more of ESPN's exclusive live coverage of the 1981 National Football League Collegiate Draft after this word.
Give me some men who are stout-hearted men who will fight for the right they adore.
Reviewing exactly what has happened so far in the first round as we await the selection of San Francisco. They have about 5 minutes remaining. George Rogers, the first selection by New Orleans, the running back out of South Carolina. The Giants immediately thereafter selecting Lawrence Taylor, the linebacker from North Carolina. The Jets took no more than a minute to make their selection. Freeman McNeil, the running back from UCLA. Then Seattle taking about 9 minutes to finally select Kenny Easley, the defensive back from UCLA. 14 minutes later, just under the gun, the Cards picking E.J. Jr., the linebacker from Alabama. And about 8 minutes following that, the Packers going for the quarterback out of California, Rich Campbell, who might step right in as a starter this year for the Packers. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Hugh Green, linebacker out of Pittsburgh. That's where we stand for the moment. Let's go back to New York City and George Grant.
Thank you, Bob. There you see the clock. 6 minutes and counting for the San Francisco 49ers pick. Paul Zimmerman. We have San Francisco, and then after that, Los Angeles with the pick that they acquired in the trade with Washington. Those are the next 2 ones up, San Francisco and L.A.
Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a hand mic.
L.A. has all these drafts, and that's not only this year, but for the next 3 years, they're almost solid deuces from the second. Here's your pick.
Let's go back to the commission.
Defensive back, Ronnie Lott, USC. The next choice in the first
Fun fact,
round,
Ronnie Lott actually
Los
had
Angeles
7
Rams,
interceptions in his rookie season, and
there you have it, Ronnie Lott of
3
the
of these
Trojans,
interceptions
taken by
were
San
touchdowns.
Francisco. He'll stay on the West Coast, Paul.
Yeah, well, of course it was Lott or Easley for San Francisco. They wanted Easley, but they said it was Lott. But the point about L.A., what are they going to do with all these drafts? I mean, they have a team of stars. It's a veteran team. Only 4 or 5 rookies are going to make it. What do they need them all for? collection, like an antique show or something. I think they were smart when they upgraded for a 4 and a 2. Everybody said they gave up too much, but they're just going to save themselves the bonus money. Why do they want to pay all these bonuses and then have to cut these guys in camp so somebody else can get them? I think they should trade a lot of these and pick up keynote veterans and just spot them in and out like Dallas does.
This was, with Don Klosterman and Dick Steinberg, one of the most respected draft teams. Steinberg is gone. Klosterman, of course, is still there. How do you rank this team now?
You mean
from a draft selection standpoint?
L.A.?
Yes.
Well, I don't know. You're always looking at it in hindsight. I think L.A. is pretty solid. I mean, they didn't get all those draft choices through accident. They have some smart people there. The Green Bay trade, the blockbuster one where Hader went there, that was Chuck Knox. New Orleans had talked to him about it. Chuck Knox, turned around and did it. But, they didn't pick up all those extra drafts by being stupid.
All right, Washington trades their pick to the Rams. The Rams are now up in the number 9 position. Following that will come the Cincinnati Bengals for their selection process. Ron Barr is giving us the picture from the West Coast standpoint. We've already heard from Rich Campbell's coach. Let's go back to Ron Barr and see what's cooking.
San Francisco 49er coach Bill Walsh said that he wanted to get either Kenny Easley or Ronnie Lott. Easley goes to Seattle. Ronnie Lott goes to the 49ers. With me is Ray Ratto of the San Francisco Examiner. Do you feel that was a good choice, or maybe they should have gotten some backup help where Paul Hofer, who's out with a bad injury?
The Raiders actually
had
the
a
21st
serious
pick
defensive
and the 23rd
secondary
pick
problem
in the
last year
1981.
and the year before. They had to get a defensive secondary man. And I think they're probably pleasantly surprised that Lott lasted as long as they did. The way the draft was sort of penciled out in everybody's mind here was that both Lott and Easley would go earlier than they did.
What about the pressure put on a young player? Bill needs to have somebody in that secondary who can play immediately. Is Lott that type of ball player?
Lott's a marvelous player. Having seen him for a couple of years straight now at SC, he's the sort of guy that he's an intimidator.
Make sure, if you already haven't done so, to subscribe if you want to. And I just want to thank you guys all so much for all the support that you guys have shown lately. God bless. Peace.